Welcome to another episode of Leadership Lessons. My guest today is Rob Muncy, and we're talking about when God moves you from one assignment to another. Rob, thank you for joining Leadership Lessons.
I'm really glad to be here, Todd.
All right. Let me tell you about Rob. Rob has been the senior pastor of Gano Baptist Church for over 10 years. He has also pastored churches in Mississippi and New Mexico. He transitioned from the nuclear industry, very interesting, to over 25 years ago into Christian ministry. He and his wife, Michelle, are now considering a new transition into the IMB to do member care. So, Rob, tell us, give us that Mississippi connection. Are you from Mississippi?
No, I moved to Kentucky from Mississippi, but I'm not from Mississippi. I moved there from New Mexico, but I'm not from New Mexico. And I moved there from Georgia, South Carolina area. And I kind of say I'm from there, but I'm not really.
Okay. So tell us about your ministry journey and about the transition that you're currently considering.
Well, God's got an awesome sense of timing because this was scheduled a couple months ago. And so we've been going through the IMB process. And we just found out that due to medical things, we're not qualified to go to the IMB right now.
Yeah.
And so there are other avenues where we can use our gifts and talents to bless the IMB. So we're looking into those. So my wife's got her PhD in what's it called? I got to get it right. In clinical psychology and counseling.
Sure.
Or counseling and supervision from New Orleans Baptist Theological Seminary.
So, Rob, tell us a little bit about the transition from one place to the next, but especially maybe this most current one. What made you sense it was time to consider something new? How did you know?
I'll kind of go backwards if I can.
Sure.
To leave the nuclear industry to go into the ministry, my pastor started telling me I was going to be a pastor, and I just laughed and laughed at him. And he got cancer at 43 years old, and it was pancreatic cancer, and he died in 6 months.
Wow.
And he wouldn't take his morphine on Saturdays so he could prepare and preach on Sundays. And we would wheel him in a wheelchair, pick him up in a straight back chair, put him up on stage, and he would whisper these amazing sermons.
Wow, my goodness.
And I said, if I ever do become a pastor, I want to be that kind of pastor, right? I want to be that sold out. And so he did that until about two weeks before he died.
Yeah.
So we just watched him just kind of wither. Yeah. But he was always whisper these amazing sermons. And so the older deacons, they used up their 3 sermons each, and they said, all right, Rob, it's your turn. And I went home and told my wife I was going to preach the following Sunday night. And she goes, oh, no. Call him back and tell him, no, you're going to embarrass you, me, God, and everybody. Don't do it. And I'm like,
nothing like a little inspiration.
Well, that's supportive. Yeah. But we're brutally honest with each other.
Right.
She was the public speaker, and I was not.
Yeah.
We taught youth for 15 years, but the youth put up with my ums and chasing rabbits and my ADD and everything else. But to preach was completely different. And so when I did finally get up to preach, she had her mouth open the whole time because she didn't recognize me because God just took over. And I had practiced for her, and she goes, whose voice were you doing? And I said, what do you mean, whose voice was I doing? Because I do a lot of the cartoon character voices and stuff, Scooby-Doo and all that. And she goes, whose voice were you doing? And I was like, I wasn't doing anybody's voice. I was talking like preachers talk, God and Lord. And she said, oh, don't do that. If you're going to preach, use your voice. I'm like, okay, whatever. So I did, and God just took over. And when I sat down, she said, Paul was right. You are being called. Yeah. And so that's when I started, I preached like 3 more times when I was in New Mexico at that church. And then God sent me back to Georgia and South Carolina area with my nuclear job. And my pastor's dad opened a branch of a small seminary in our church. And I was the only student for 6 months. So I had these full-time pastors that would come and teach me and me alone for 2 hours once a week. And it was lockstep. And for 6 months, I was the only student. And then they started growing and getting more students and stuff. And in 2 years, I had a master's degree. And I thought, all right, I'll quit my job and start preaching in South Carolina. God moved me back out to New Mexico. Within a week, I was doing pulpit supply. Within a month, I was teaching that branch of that small seminary out there, and God just used that for a couple more years, and I had to choose whether I was going to take a church or quit, and quit that nuclear job. So I left that nuclear job and quit, and hadn't even preached in view of a call at the church out in New Mexico. And God just gave me total peace after, because I was looking for an answer and I couldn't get it. And so I started fasting. I read that verse that says some things only by prayer and fasting.
Mm-hmm.
So being the deep theologian that I am, I said, okay, I'll fast. And I didn't look into it. I didn't research it or anything. I'm like Peter. I just jumped out of the boat
Mm-hmm.
and said, all right, I'll fast. So I fasted for about 5 days, just water. And because that's all I knew about fasting. But I got such a peace about it. And I left that 6-figure job to take a little church in northern New Mexico. And I was their 23rd pastor in 75 years.
Wow.
But it took fasting for me to understand that transition. And then after 5 years there, the next transition came so quick. It was just somebody called me and says, hey, we're from this church. We're looking for a pastor. Can we come by and hear you preach? I'm like, well, yeah. I mean, what am I going to say? No.
Yeah.
And so they came all the way to New Mexico and stopped by and heard me preach. I took them up to Los Alamos where I worked, and showed them around because I had worked up there for so long that I kind of knew the area really well. So I took them on a tour, and they said, well, next month our youth group's coming to Glorieta. You're old enough to remember where Glorieta is,
sure.
right? And so their youth group came out with a lot of the adults. And so I met them. They were like 30 minutes away. So I went down and met them and fell in love with the youth. And within a month, I was in Mississippi, not even knowing how they got my resume.
Wow.
And I was there for 7 years. And then I got a phone call from Kentucky here at Gano. And they said, how would you like to move to Kentucky? And I'm like, I'm not thinking I'm moving to Kentucky. My grandson was just born in Mississippi. I'm not going.
Yeah.
I'm not moving again. And I came up here to interview, like to do my due diligence, right?
Yeah,
with God.
Sure.
Is my deal with God. I'll do an interview, but I'm not going, God. I did the interview and they said, well, do you want to preach while you're up here? I'm like, nope, I just want to do the interview. That was my minimum deal with God. And then I started feeling guilty. I was like, well, I may as well sing for my supper. So I agreed to preach that Sunday. And I met the church and worshiped with them. And by the time the worship session was over, and they have this thing called deacon prayer time, and I had just never felt as inspired to preach as after their choir and praise team sang, and I was just bubbling over to preach. And I said, I think I'm staying. And my wife said, I can stay here.
Wow.
And
My goodness.
so now we're in Kentucky.
All right. So we're going to get to the IMB sense of wanting to do something with missions, but I want to come back and Rob, you've already self-diagnosed yourself as ADD. So we're going to come back and principleize some of these things that you've discussed. So what are 2 or 3 kind of principles that you would pull out of your own story, not necessarily for anybody else, but in your experience, things that have been true about God leading you? Just try to bullet point 2 or 3 things. And I've written down some as well. So what do you yeah, go ahead.
I highly recommend fasting.
Okay.
I know we're Baptists, and I know that's not, that doesn't work with potlucks, but I highly recommend it. It reminds your body that your soul is in control, right? And we're more soul than we are body, physical. And so, but we can miss a day of our quiet time, but we can't miss a meal, right? So our body screams louder than our spirit does. But listening to your spirit and shutting your body up for a little while, so you can hear from God, because God's always talking. I don't fast so God will talk to me. I fast so I can hear it, right? Because all the distractions are so loud.
Yeah. So I've heard a couple things that I see in you. Number one is that you've been faithful wherever God's called you. You were faithful. Hey, by the way, what was the pastor's name in New Mexico? You said Paul.
Paul Budrius.
Paul Budrius. I just want to honor him. Sounds like he was a great
Yeah,
mentor in your life and a faithful guy. And so you were faithfully serving there as a lay leader. You had worked a job, and when called upon to preach, you were willing to step into that as well, right?
right, right.
The second thing I see is that you were open. You weren't trying to leave any of those places. I don't think. I don't hear you saying that you have a lot of
No,
resumes out there. You were just kind of serving, and you didn't even know how they received your name. You were open. And then third, I heard you say that you sought the Lord through fasting and listening and praying. And then I heard you say that you responded to invitations, that when someone reached out to you, it sounds like you kind of felt like the need to do your due diligence to have a conversation. And then in the end, you're kind of sensing God's peace and direction that we really believe God's in this. And so you've just kind of stepped by faith, either out of the boat or into that next experience. Rob, have you had to counsel any other pastors who are trying to process whether or not it's time for them to leave? And how have you
I
helped them?
love I love talking to other pastors and kind of helping them through things and stuff. I think when I grow up, I want to be used to be called a DOM. Now
Yeah.
it's what's it called now?
AMS, Associational Mission
AMS.
Strategist.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's it. That new technology, I tell you, or new acronyms.
So, Rob,
But
go ahead, please.
I was just going to say, part has always been. I mean, even when I was a deacon, man, I was just always looking for people to invest in,
Hmm.
and I love investing in pastors and future pastors. I just if I could do one thing the rest of my life, it'd probably be counseling,
Yeah,
because my wife's a marriage and family therapist,
right.
and she has me come in when people are looking for pastoral counseling.
Hmm.
And pastoral counseling is like um, demanded discipleship.
Yeah, yeah.
It's like, you know, and it's interesting that I'll do it for free here at the church. And, but because of her overhead, if I do it in her office, she has to charge a certain amount, but I don't take a paycheck from that.
Hmm.
But it's, it's like they value it more if they have to pay for it or
Sure.
something.
Yeah, I'd say that's probably true. So, Rob, what would you consider to be healthy motivations or unhealthy motivations for leaving a current ministry assignment?
Unhealthy would be looking for more money
Okay.
or more popularity. If you want to be the pastor of a big church, stay where you are and grow
Yeah.
it,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
And healthy would be just wherever God says go, go. It, the story of Abram
Hmm.
and me right now, go to a land I will show you.
Yep.
We surrendered uh, almost a year ago now to go to missions,
Yeah.
and whatever that looks like. If we thought IMB, because um, they have such a great member care organization that we want to bless the kingdom more,
Right.
and so we want to just be used more by God to bless our missionaries. We fell in love with a bunch of missionaries. Gosh, we went to the Mid Advance conference last year
Hmm.
down in Virginia, and it was stunning. I mean, they were basically saying, if you're not already an evangelist, we don't want you,
Yeah.
right? And I'm looking around, and these young people are there, and I'm like, wow, these young people are all evangelists, and it's so exciting to be a part of that. And they all had such amazing stories, and you don't get to be my age without. You're a little bit younger than me, I think, aren't you?
No, it's hard to say.
So you don't get to be our age by not learning something along the way, right?
Right. Right. Well, you
And
hope so.
so
Yeah.
the stuff that we've learned, I just love sharing with younger people
Yeah.
so
So,
that they don't have to learn the hard way.
Rob, you've been doing this for a while, and you've led your family through these transitions. What are a couple of things that you've learned, either the hard way or the easy way, about leading your family through a ministry transition?
Well, when I first surrendered to the ministry, um, all my oldest daughter was about 10,
Okay.
and we had gone back to our sending church out of South Carolina, and they said, Well, she had gone to her Sunday school class, and the pastor of that church's wife was teaching her Sunday school class, and she had asked for prayer requests from the 10-year-olds. And my daughter says, "Pray for our family. My daddy's going into ministry, and we're going to be poor." So that was my best, her voice. But yeah,
I understand. So,
yeah. So
what have you done right, and what would you do different on leading your family through a transition?
um, when I first did it, I thought my priorities were God, family, church.
Okay,
But every time the church called, I treated it like God had called,
interesting.
and I left my family to be third.
Yeah,
And I had transitioned to the church in New Mexico as basically a bivocational pastor because of the amount of salary. So I had to work part-time up at Los Alamos to make up the difference so we could make our bills.
right.
And I told him I would only do that for a year and a half. Well, a year and a half later, the church had grown, my bills had gone down, and my salary had gone up a little bit. So I was able to quit my job. So I guess I was bivocational. And so being bivocational, I felt like I had to be there every evening,
Mm-hmm.
right? Well, so then when I quit being bivocational, when the finances kind of weighed out, I was full time at the church. So therefore, I felt like I had to be at the church every day
Sure.
and every night because I couldn't quit anything that I'd already started. So I was fully consumed by the ministry, and my family was getting leftovers.
Yeah. How'd you
And in New Mexico,
how'd you discover that? How did that kind of dawn on you that this is what's happening right now?
well, my wife told me over and over that it wasn't right, it didn't feel right, it wasn't comfortable, and they were confused. And the family was confused,
Sure.
and but I didn't hear that.
Yeah.
We went to a kind of a marriage conference, pastor's retreat, much like the shepherding conference here in Kentucky, but they only did it like every few years in New Mexico. And they had a marriage conference there, and the speakers said, "Pastors, is your church sending you home to be a husband and father, or is your family sending you to church to be a pastor?"
Mm.
And it was like a gut punch. It was like I got it. The way he said it,
Mm-hmm.
I got it. And all those conversations I'd had with my wife in the past that I just kind of blew off and said, "Hey, you knew it. I was going to the ministry. Well, it's okay."
Yeah.
All came rushing in on me, and I realized that I was giving my family leftovers, and I got to give my family. That's my first ministry, and if I lose them, I lose any chance of being in a ministry.
Yeah. So what did you do when you had that realization that I've not been doing this according to biblical priorities? What did you do?
I realized I had to stop trying to be super pastor
Okay.
and start just working on my time with God
Yeah.
and my time with my family, and then going wholeheartedly into the ministry and being able to say no to certain things and working out the good, better, best paradigm. I can be really good at a lot of things and be really, really busy. But if I let go of some of the good things, I can do the better things. And if I let go of some of the better things, I can do some of the best things.
Mm-hmm.
And I focused on trying to find the best I could do. And I would constantly ask God, am I doing the best I can? Am I?
Good. Yeah.
I would reevaluate and take stock of the ministry and my family, and be there more for my family.
Yeah, good for you. Well, I'm grateful for your story and your experience. So, Rob, you're planning to leave a church that you love and that you've been serving faithfully for a good while. Let's talk about leaving a church well. How are you trying to do that? How are you trying to leave Gano Baptist in the best condition? There may be hurt feelings. How are you addressing that? Are you involved in the transition to calling a new pastor? What are you doing to try to leave well?
I really hate the 2-week notice paradigm that most churches do and most pastors do.
Yeah.
I understand the necessity of it. I've done it a couple of times, and it's brutal. It's just brutal. It makes churches stronger. It makes people step forward and stuff. But since I had advance notice on going into IMB. I told my church that I'm retiring in a year. So last November, I told them that I gave them 12 months notice.
Mm-hmm.
And the best transition I ever saw was Adrian Rogers
Mm-hmm.
when he anointed the other guy
Yeah.
and passed the mantle and washed his feet on stage at church
Yeah.
in front of everybody. I mean, that's what I would love to do. So I don't know how much I'm going to be involved in finding the next pastor. I didn't get selected for the pastor search committee, but I am going to be like available to them
Sure.
to go through resumes to help find the next guy. Whoever's next, whoever watches this video, this church is the best church I've ever been a part of.
Wow.
And to leave it is nothing short of insane,
Yeah.
right? Because I could stay here 20 more years and love it. I mean, I love the people here. The people love me back, love my family, treat us so well. And to leave it, it just doesn't make sense. But I know God's moving me to
Yeah.
something.
Yeah.
And I thought it was IMB overseas long term, but it's not that. And so God's gently closing these doors. And I'm, boy, at the Reach conference, commercial for Reach,
Yeah.
but at the Reach conference, the theme was say yes.
Mm-hmm.
And the cards that were out there, and you had them like you put your name on it and you say yes, and then it had that big space on the bottom.
Mm-hmm.
And we've said yes,
Yeah.
but I couldn't put anything in the bottom
Yeah.
other than yes.
Yeah.
Whatever it is, God, whatever it is.
But that's been kind of the story of your life, right? I mean, you kind of put your yes on the table years ago, and it's still there. You're letting God fill in the blanks. It sounds like.
Amen.
Yeah. Yeah.
Amen. Whatever it is.
So
My wife's got
no, go ahead.
a marriage and family practice. And so with my counseling, I think I've said that a couple of times.
Yeah.
But counseling with her is so much fun. We do marriage conferences, we do together, and we counsel together sometimes. And it started when we were starting to teach Sunday school 30, 40 years ago. It was just, we could play off each other really well and kind of keep people's attention. And she'd go one way and then she'd start losing them, and then I'd go the other. We taught sixth grade boys, and if you can keep a group of 30 sixth grade boys attention for more than 30 minutes, you did really good.
Yeah.
And so that's what we started with, and it was so much fun to do that. So we do that a lot with counseling. I've gone through a lot of like Prepare and Rich training, marriage counseling, and just other things. And so we do those things together. And she wrote a marriage conference for her PhD.
Yeah.
And so that's what we teach: the neurological differences between men and women.
Oh wow.
And just all the things that she discovered. It was so interesting to us, the differences between men and women. Like, everybody knows men and women are different, except science didn't, right?
Yeah.
Science would never say men and women are different, because they were afraid women would think we would say we were saying that they were less somehow.
Yeah.
And no woman ever thinks that when they know how different we are, right? They think they're better, because we're men. So, but all these neurological differences, when she did the statistics for her marriage conference, we taught it twice in Kentucky, once in West Virginia, once in Mississippi, and once in Austria at a Nigerian church.
Okay.
And so even across cultures and in different areas, it proved to be 60% effective for making a more satisfied marriage.
Wow. So Rob, let's we talk about how you're trying to help a church. How has the church helped you with this transition? How have they responded to your announcement, And what can a church do to encourage a pastor who is honestly only wants to follow God? He's only trying to follow God's leadership on his life. What can a church do to kind of support that, encourage it, and feed it, even though they don't want to say goodbye to their pastor?
There's a lot of times as a pastor, you got to reframe and set the frame
Yeah.
of what's happening. So this church has always sent out missionaries, right? So
Okay.
even if somebody moves to Florida or something, they tell them you're just on mission. You're still going to be a member here. You're just on mission to Florida.
Right.
And so I kind of grabbed onto that idea and said, I'm not leaving you guys. You are going to be my sending church. And therefore I'm going to be connected to you forever, no matter where I go. And so you guys are sending me. So I need you to pray for me and my family so that we can go. And I'll be praying for you guys that for your next pastor, for your next decade, for your kids to grow up. I mean, I've been here almost 11 years and I've never lived anywhere 11 years in my whole life. I've moved my whole life. I was born in Texas, moved to Germany, raised in Georgia, went to high school in Ohio. Then I joined the Army and started traveling. They sent me everywhere, back to Germany. I got out, went to California, met my wife, and moved to South Carolina, then Georgia, then South Carolina, then New Mexico, then Georgia, then New Mexico, then Mississippi, now here.
Yeah.
And Kentucky's home.
Yeah.
I get it. I get it. My mom and dad are from Inez, Kentucky. I've never lived in Kentucky until now, but it was always called home, right? We'd go home to Inez. And Central Kentucky it's gorgeous. The people are amazingly kind and sweet. The lostness percentage is super high, and all these nice people are going to go to hell if we don't tell them.
Yeah.
But it's really nice. My kids ask me all the time, "Why did we ever live anywhere else, Dad?"
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You were following God's calling. Hey, Rob, this platform is called Leadership Lessons, and we're going to ask one leadership lesson or question for you. I'd love to hear a leadership lesson that you maybe you had to learn it the hard way, maybe not, but if there's a story behind it, so something that you've learned about being a leader, and if you could tell a story that taught you that lesson, that'd be super helpful. Anything like that for you?
Nope, don't have any of those. To lead well, you gotta love well. Right. And the unconditional love that God has, that comes with that unconditional grace and unconditional mercy. You got to give that to other people. There was a movie a long time ago called Pure Country.
Okay.
George Strait was in it.
Yeah.
And so one of the characters had sabotaged his relationship and done him really dirty. And George Strait comes up to her and says, "Lulu, from all my friends, you're probably one of my longest friends, and you're due a few mistakes."
Yeah. Wow.
And approaching relationships with grace. If somebody hurts your feelings or does something that doesn't make sense, I have a ministry word, interesting, right? When somebody hits me with something out of the blue and I say interesting, and I try to look smart.
Yeah.
That's why I wear glasses, so I look a little smarter. But I say the word interesting, and it gives me a minute to regroup and go, wow, that really hurt, or wow, that was really rude, and so it gives me some internal time to process, and then I can respond. I don't respond like super quick, right? I don't lash out at people, and so giving myself a beat, right, and taking time to respond, and giving people just grace. I don't know where their heads at. I don't know what they're going through. I mean, even the people in church, I don't know everything about their life. And the more I learn, the more grace I have for them. It's like, holy cow, if I had that going on, I'd be a basket case. And just kind of putting myself in other people's shoes a little bit and not being so afraid of accountability.
Yeah.
I think that would be a huge one is I seek accountability. I have a men's group that meets here at the church on Thursday nights. that I do not teach. I call that my Sunday school class, and they teach me and they pour into me. And there's a lot of guys that can, and I can learn so much from everybody. So I just kind of, I don't try to put myself like I'm the pastor and you can't speak to me that way, or,
right. Yep.
I'm just never been that guy, but it's just to be accountable. And I'm accountable, number one, to God, and number two, to my family, and number three, to all Christians and lost people. I'm accountable.
Yeah. Hey, Rob, I appreciate you. You're an example of a guy saying yes to God's call. Abram left his people going to a country he didn't know where he was going. Peter stepped out of the boat. You're striving to do that. Paul didn't know where to go, and he saw the vision of the man from Macedonia come over and help us. He knew where to go. And you had a plan that you thought was IMB. That's not opening up for you. But I trust God's going to lead you, and I know that you trust that as well. I appreciate you and appreciate your ministry in Kentucky, and really appreciate you joining Leadership Lessons.
It was really fun to talk to you, Todd. I just love your leadership style, your heart for evangelism, and just any part of the KBC organization. I mean, everybody I've met from there, from Andy McDonald to just all the way across the spectrum, has been just an honor to work with.
Thank you, brother. You're very kind. Thank you again.
Love you guys.
Thanks for listening to Leadership Lessons. An audio podcast of this program is available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and more. The Kentucky Baptist Convention was created by churches for churches to help churches reach Kentucky and the world for Christ. For more information about the KBC and the cooperative program, which fuels our ministry, go to kybaptist.org. We'll see you next time.